All right, Shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Racha HaKwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. To you I say Shalom. This is the brother Yeshaya coming at you again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Back again with another lesson. This one's going to be entitled, Even in Death, the Elect Can't Lose. Okay, even in death, the elect can't lose. All right. And, this lesson was pretty much inspired off of, some thoughts, I was going through in my mind, really, meditating on the Jacob's trouble, meditating on, a lot of things that's really about to take place here in the planet Earth. And, one thing we got to understand is those of us that are in this thing, and those of us coming into this thing, right, into this truth. Um, I know Apostle Gabar calls it this thing of ours, you know what I'm saying? Because only really is this truth is only for us, the Israelites, right? And we understand that only the elect are going to be grafted in or back into this thing, right? But again, just going back to the title, how even in death the elect can't lose, because here it is, we're gonna go through, certain adversity. We're gonna go through, things that's gonna test our faith, things that's gonna, you know, put us to the brink of our limits. But at the end of the day, we gotta understand that all this trial and tribulation that we're gonna go through, is gonna be for our betterment. Is to prove and test our faith to see if we're really worthy of that salvation, of the kingdom of heaven, right? But at the same time, we're in the flesh, right? So we got to be able to manage our mind, you know, and through this different adversity, and that comes with knowing that even if, what I'm saying, the Most High decides to call us up to the spirit world, as long as we're doing what is required of us, you know, and Lord willing, will be part of that elect number, that will be ultimately we'll be all right, man. We got to understand that death, it just all it is a transition, right? From the physical world to the spiritual world, right? That's all it is. It's a cycle. We die and then we come back. We die and we come back, you know? And our forefathers knew this, which is why they operated in a way to where, they knew that the decisions that they made, would have either drastic ramifications or benefits, depending if they made the right decision um, in their life, later down the line, you will see those benefits or ramifications, right? So in the same way, we got to think in that same manner, knowing now what we know is that our decisions that we make from here on out is going to dictate our future. Is going to dictate whether we part of the elect, whether we, get delivered. You know what I'm saying? We're really only the elect are going to get delivered, but really is going to affect us in this, this season that we're approaching, right? Because as our apostles and elders always, mention, the time for mistakes, what I'm saying, is really, um, really about to get cut short. This grace period is about to really end, to where those who have used their time wisely and applied the scriptures and really done the best that they can to serve the Lord and please Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai and repent and turn away from this world, you know, they're about to be rewarded. And all those who didn't and wasted their time and decided to, live in mirth and, keep their head in the sand, they're ultimately going to get judged, right? And but all this to say is that um, ultimately the elect, the reward that the elect are going to receive, is going to be, just pursuant to Romans 8 and 18, it talks about uh, how the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Right. So the glory we're about to receive, the blessings, the promises, all that is about to be so far, above the little suffering that we're going to be enduring here in this side, right? But even, like I said, but even in death, we can't lose. You know what I'm saying? If we're in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, if we're part of the elect, there's no loss, man, right? And I want to read this real quick. This is in Philippians chapter 1 and verse 21. It says, "For to me to live is Hamashiach, and to die is gain." I'm going to read this in the NLT. It says, "For to me, living means living for Hamashiach, and dying is even better," because, see, Paul understood that us dying, all it is a transition, right? You're from the physical realm to the spiritual realm, right? And that's all it is. So for us, if we die, that's ultimately us just, we're going up to the heavens, and we're gonna meet our maker, right? We're gonna be with Yahweh Shah, right? So knowing that, and this is one thing, the world always puts this fear of dying, fear of death, right? Because of the precepts of men, the way that they teach you, that death is the final, is this is darkness, or you go to hell, you know what I'm saying, or pretty much is a finale, right? But nah, it's a cycle, right? We all come back, but this is gonna be the last time, you know what I'm saying, where we're gonna be coming back into these, mortal bodies, and continuing on this cycle of life and death, because the kingdom of heaven is here, man, or is fastly approaching, I should say, right? The scriptures say how the kingdom of heaven is in you, right? Because it starts with us in our mind, and we see that the Most High is dealing with us now, to where He's bringing us back to remembrance and pursuing the prophecy. That's going to happen in the last days, right? How He's going to bring us back, and eventually, physically put us in the land of Israel, right? Give us immortal bodies, give us the land, give us the kingdom, right? Pretty much the whole earth, right? But again, just circling back, um, even, whenever all hell breaks loose, and Esau really starts cracking down on the elect, those that fear the Lord, right? Because that persecution is coming. So we can't have that fearful thought, the fearful mind, of what if this and what if that, you know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and 10, it talks about that. It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer," right? So fear none of those things, that we're going to suffer. Don't be afraid, right? Now, like I said, we're in the flesh, so we're going to have that bit of fear, but at the end of the day, our confidence in the Lord and His promises, and His power, our faith has to overtake that fear, right? Yes, fear is a normal thing, but our faith is going to have to, uh, 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 like I said, overtake it. Is going to have to triumph over that fear, right? And we've seen it, from our forefathers. A great example of that, of course, was Yahweh Shah. How he mentioned how um, uh, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? So he was going through that mental battle, right? But he went through with it anyway, right? He was dealing with that pull of the flesh, but he conquered it. And we're about to be tested in that same fashion, right? You also have um in second no wait I think it's Second Maccabees the seventh chapter, right? Goes into those seven brothers, that ended up laying down their lives, right? Even though it might seem like they died a painful death, ultimately that those deaths were honored by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? To the point where it was written in the scriptures, right? Now they have an everlasting memory of their sacrifice, right? And in the same fashion, the elect, they're going to be remembered. Those that do get put to death, those that do end up going through these, you know, through this heavy persecution and enduring through all the obstacles that's thrown in their way, they're going to be remembered in the kingdom of heaven, you know? And, legacy, legacy is everything. That's why you see, here in this world, you have a lot of these celebrities, these ball players, whoever they may be that's up there, that wants to receive some type of status and remembrance in life, you know, they always talk about legacy. They always talk about, talking about, oh, we're going to put this is going to be down for the history books, right? Because they understand that once they're gone, you know, the memory and the effects that they left behind, that's what's going to matter, right? But we understand that the ways of this world is going to pass away. The thing that's going to remain are the works of the elect, right? That's going to carry over unto eternity. All right. But anyway, without ranting too much, let me go ahead and go back to Revelation 2:10. It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried." Right. So some of us going to get thrown into the concentration camps, whether it's because of, not uh, uh, um, going to war, because that draft is coming. Some of us are going to be tossed into that draft and be selected. You know what I'm saying? And hey, we understand that we ain't gonna go to war. you know, I'd rather go to prison than go to war. So hey, some of us might get tossed into prison, man. The Bible is gonna be made illegal. It's gonna be called hate speech. It's gonna be, anybody with that denomination, or those that believe in the scriptures, believe in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, are gonna be deemed, as enemies of the state. So they're gonna have to be on the run. They're gonna face persecution. Some of us might get caught up, right? To where, they catch us and throw us in these, FEMA camps or concentration camps, you know, and they're gonna be testing us, right? But as it says, fear none of those things which we, that we will suffer, man. Give not your mind unto heaviness. Instead, trust in the process and trust that the Lord will deliver you out of it. Even if you got to go through death, even if you got to be a martyr, you got to understand that that's going to be a honorable death. When you look at these different ancient cultures that Jake had, and a lot of Jakes, they looked for an honorable death. These warrior men, warrior like men, they looked for an honorable death. Well, this is an honorable death, man. Now we don't want to die, but we know that if that's presented to us, you know, we know what the right decision is, right? But let me see. Continuing on, it says, "And ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." You see? Now, I'm gonna read this in the NLT. It says, "Be not afraid of what you're about to suffer. The devil will throw some of you into prison to test you." Right? It's a test. It says you will suffer for 10 days. Now, 10 days is just really it's not really talking about you're gonna be. It's gonna be 10 days. So don't expect when you go to prison. Oh, I'm gonna count 10 days, and after the 10th day, you don't get delivered. Don't expect. You know what I'm saying? But it says, "But if you remain faithful, even when facing death, I will give you a crown of life." You see? because that crown of life is coming. Some of us will be put to death, and we might be delivered out of death. Some of us is gonna be, face death, and will have to, get put to death. Right? John the Baptist was put to death. You know, the apostle Peter was put to death. A lot of the apostles were put to death for the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Right? Yahweh Shah was put to death, man. We ain't greater than the master, right? Now Yahweh Shah did say though, in the book of Matthew, the 16th chapter, how there's gonna be some of us that's not gonna taste death. Right? This is um it's 28, but I want to see what's up here. Let's read from 24. Matthew 16 and 24 says, Then said Yahweh Shah unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Right? So when you come to this thing, you gotta deny yourself. You gotta understand this is for the glory of the names Yahweh, why Yahweh Shah, right? This is the reason why we're doing what we're doing, is to bring honor and glory to those names, right? We're gonna receive our reward in the kingdom, right? Because we're gonna be joint heirs with Yahweh Shah. So he's gonna share that glory, he's gonna share that wealth, he's gonna share the kingdom, right? So if you're in this thing and you're trying to make it about yourself, you're already in the wrong mindset, right? So you gotta deny yourself when you come into this thing. This is not about us, right? Of course, what we want is salvation, right? And in order to do that, you gotta do the best that you can, as the scripture says, to put on therefore as the elect, and that comes with you denying yourself, right, and putting Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah on the forefront. In verse 25, it says, "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it." You see, so you're gonna have to make that decision of, what I'm saying, putting your life on the back burner, right, and putting Yahweh Shah first, putting what the will of the Lord is before your wants, right? But let me go back and read this. It says, "For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it." Because Esau is going to test you. He's going to put a certain test in front of you, especially with the MOTB. Whenever resources are thin or non-existent, pretty much, because famine, or thirst for bread, hunger for food, you know, peace, all that is going to be stripped away. Well, I should say that there's going to be a famine. There's going to be a need for water. There's going to be a need for food, right? And that alone, just with those two things being stripped away from you or stripped away from society, is going to make society a chaotic environment, which is going to be, uh, um, which means that peace is going to be stripped away, security is going to be stripped away, right? And Esau's going to offer you, certain things, if you take this MOTB, because that's what he's coming with, right? The micro C hip, and he's going to test you, right? Again, the time of testing is coming, and you're going to be faced with these decisions to make, right? Whether you're going to fold or whether you're going to remain strong. But as it says, if you, try to save your life, you go and, go down to Egypt for help. If you go down to Esau, and try to, you know, negotiate, and eventually take the MOTB, you're gonna lose your life, right? Because all this, like I said, Esau's on his way out, pursuant to Second Ezra 6 and 9, right? Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. So Esau is on his way out, and we're on a come up. So understanding that, you shouldn't want to be aligning yourself with this man. You should try to separate yourself and really lean more on the Lord, because the Lord was the Yahweh Shem Yahushai, uh, um, or the world to come is going to be ran under Yahweh Shem Yahushai, right? But anyway, it says, "And whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it," right? Because even when we lose our life, like even if we choose, death, right? We're gonna have to choose death. You know what I'm saying? If you um um well, at least in these times that we're coming into, right, when all hell breaks loose, and there's no resources, to the world it might seem like we're choosing death, right? And yeah, we're gonna be like, well, I'd rather die, than to take the MOTB. I'd rather die than to submit myself under this man, Esau, right? So we're gonna have to choose death, but understanding the fact that we're not really choosing death. We're really choosing life, right? We're choosing death to this world, but we're really choosing life because we're choosing to be aligned to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. We understand that the Lord is not gonna, leave us out here, to wither and die, right? Just read Isaiah, what is it, 65:13. My servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. As a matter of fact, let me see. I just want to make sure I quoted it right, or um, it's the right location. Yep. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna read it. Isaiah 65:13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. All right. So the Most High is going to take care of His elect. Is the point? He's going to make uh, uh, um, He's going to set aside, resources for them to be able to eat, sleep, what I'm saying, drink, you know, whatever it is that they're going to need, that we're going to need in these times. The Most High is going to provide it for us, right? Protection, security, right? Some brothers are going to be given spiritual power, man, to be able to defend themselves or defend others. You see? And reading the book of Daniel, the 12th chapter, the archangel Michael is gonna, make intercession, in these dark times. He's gonna come down and protect the elect, right? Which is why here in Hebrews, matter of fact, let me get it. Hebrews 10:35. It says, cast not away, therefore, your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward." So let me read this in the NLT. It says, "So do not throw away this confident trust in the Lord. Remember the great reward it brings you." You see? So don't cast away your confidence. Don't cast away, your trust, you know? And that's what gives us confidence, man, is our trust in the Lord. Right? That's what makes us bold, because we understand that the Most High has our back. The scriptures talk about, if the Most High be with us, who can be against us? Who's going to be able to come up against us and really, break us down and saying crumble us when we have the power, the Most High on our backs? You see, and you gotta wholeheartedly believe it, right? Because the times that we're coming into is like I said, they're designed to break you, right? That's that fire that we're gonna be uh, um purged through, right? But we're gonna have to go through it. You know, was that in Ecclesiasticus? Ecclesiasticus, I think it's 2 and 5. Yeah, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity, right? So we're gonna have to be made acceptable before the Lord, right? And that's gonna come through adversity. There's another one too I was thinking about. Oh yeah, Wisdom of Solomon. I always bring this one out. One of my favorite scriptures. Wisdom of Solomon, I think it's 3 and 5. Yeah, it says, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For the Most High proved them and found them worthy for Himself. You see, so we're gonna be in the position of being proved. You know, here it is. We say we believe, we say we trust in the Lord, we say we have faith in the Lord, but now the Most High is gonna prove us to see if we truly believe, see if we're ready to cast away everything. You know, uh, 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 to attain Him. You know, but like I said, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the elect can't lose, right? We can't lose, man. If we're part of the elect, we cannot lose. You know, it's nothing but win in this thing. So no matter how dark it gets, no matter how evil it gets, no matter how bad it gets, understand that, hey, all these evils that's about to be prepared is not for us. It's for you know, the wicked of our nation and the rest of the heathen, right? And for the downfall of this man, and for the so that way the kingdom of heaven can be erected, right? Let me see. Let's get this. Let's get First Thessalonians chapter 4, and I want to start at verse 13. It says, "But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, as ye sorrow not, oh, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope." Right? Because, like I said, some of us is going to be, you know, beheaded for not taking the MOTB, or for our beliefs, or for not rejecting the Lord, or whatever, right? Mainly that, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, as it says, you know, don't feel sorry for for them, because at the end of the day, as a matter of fact, let me just read it. Let me read it again. It says, but I would not have you be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yahushua will the Most High bring with him. You see, so those that perish, that die for the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, they're going to be with Yahushua when he returns. It says, "For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep." You see? So all those brothers that have perished, you know, we understand of a few brothers that have died, you know, even, you know, King Masha, you know, Abba Bivens, you know, all these men that were doing the work and ended up perishing, uh, um, they're going to be with Yahweh Shah when he returns, man, right? You know, and in that we have, you know, trust, and that we have great confidence in, right? Which is why, again, like I said, you know, we shouldn't fear death, because if we die and if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in the sight of the Lord, if we die, we're gonna be the first. We're gonna be up there with him, man. We're gonna be up there with Yahweh Shah when he returns, right? Verse 15, it says, "For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which remain." Okay, I already read that. Verse 16, it says, "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of the Most High, and the dead in Hamashiach shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds." Right, in the clouds, talking about those chariots, right? Especially that grand fathership that Yahushua has them coming. But it says to meet the Lord in the air, and so we ever and we Salakia, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words, right? And this is a great comfort, man. This is the reason why, that this exhortation has to come out, because um it's needed, right? Our minds is gonna have we're gonna have to prepare our minds for what we're about to experience, what we're about to see, what we're about to go through, right? Which is why, we constantly do this. Repetition is the father of skill, you know. And if we continually do this work, continually, you know, meditate upon these things, you know, we're gonna be more in a mindset and in the spirit of enduring, right? If you're ill prepared, you're not prepared. You're not getting your mind right. You're not, getting your spirit right for these days. You know, you're not gonna perform right. You see, and we understand the elect. They're gonna be doing. They're gonna be getting themselves ready to prepare for these things that we're about to go through. Right. Now let's see. Now, I guess, with all that saying, we understand we're gonna have 11th hour servants. So Jake is gonna wake up at the last minute, but ultimately it's because they're part of the elect. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be waiting to the last minute, to try to get things right, you know. But let me see. Uh, let's get this last one, and I'm gonna close it out. Matthew 10 and verse 28. It says, "Fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." All right. So we shouldn't fear Esau. We shouldn't fear what man can do. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't fear of these fear tactics that Esau is coming with, making you scared of, oh, what am I going to eat? Pretty much he's putting that into the media, and he's putting that into the minds of the masses, right? Having you scared, having you think of the worst thoughts, so that way you can operate in haste. You know, oh, well, I'm gonna have to stock up, which ain't nothing wrong with storing up some food, getting prepared. But understand that that's not what's going to deliver you. What's going to deliver you is getting prepared spiritually before the Lord, right? No amount of physical preparation is going to prepare you for what's to come. Because the scriptures talk about how it's an easy thing for the Lord, pretty much to judge you. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find it. Bear with me. I believe it says it's a light thing or an easy thing. I can't remember exactly. Um, okay, right here. So Rock 11 and verse 26, it says, as a matter of fact, I'll start at, damn, let me read more up. Actually, I'll start at 24. It says, again, say not, I have enough and possess many things, and what evil shall I have hereafter? In the day of prosperity, there is a forgetfulness of affliction, and in the day of affliction, there is no more remembrance of prosperity. For it is an easy thing unto the Lord in the day of death to reward a man according to his ways. You see? So it's easy for the Lord to judge you at any minute, at any time, at any second. He can just whatever time he deems necessary, or like enough is enough. He just snaps his fingers. He does whatever, man. He just says the word, and that's it. You're done. It's an easy thing. It's a light thing unto the Lord, man. Right? So going back, Matthew 10 and 28, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell, right? So you gotta have fear of the Lord, right? Which is gonna keep you on that straight and narrow, you know. But also that trust, that the Most High is a man of His word, and that He's gonna take care of us, right? That's what's gonna keep us comforted in these days, right? Verse 29, it says, "Are not are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father?" See, so understand that the Most High dictates all of that, man. It says, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows, right? So in the eyes of the Lord, His servants are valuable, right? But understand at the same time that the Most High will not uh, 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 have you go through some if He didn't deem it necessary. Just like Yahweh had to go through that, but it was necessary. If Yahweh didn't do what He did, lay up His life on the cross, we wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't be, returning back. We wouldn't, all these beautiful things that has happened to the elect of our nation wouldn't be happening right now, right? So again, that was pretty much it, though. All this to say, hey, even in death, the elect can't lose, man. You know, the elect are going to win regardless, right? So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Hashem, Racha HaKodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who taught me this truth and who well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing this word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth and sincerity. Until the next time, I'm gonna say Shalom, Kwam Yasha Allah.